Good evening and welcome to Rupees and Cents, brought to you with the compliments of People's Leasing and Finance PLC. The 12th century explorer Marco Polo wrote that Sri Lanka is the finest island in the whole world. For centuries it had been a great tourism destination, particularly for European travelers. However, the 30-year-old internal conflict had a negative impact on tourism, and the growth of the industry stagnated. After the end of conflict in 2009, the country's tourism prospects look promising, and in tonight's Rupees and Cents, we'll be looking at the future of tourism with a gentleman who has been in the tourism industry for over 35 years. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Vasantha Leelananda, Executive Vice President, Head Designation Management Sector, John Keells Group. Vasantha, with your experience, tell me, do you see a significant or noticeable difference in tourist arrivals now as opposed to many years ago?
Well, Daya, I cannot agree with you more than what you said. We see a massive change since the end of the conflict in 2009. If I may just trace back a little bit, we've had a very mature tourism industry as far back as early 80s. Mm-hmm. But for a period of more than 30 years, we never could really progress beyond a certain point. We were revolving around small numbers. We were happy with what we were getting, but unfortunately, when the whole region was moving at a tremendous pace, we couldn't keep pace with that. Going back to 2000, we had roughly about 400,000 tourist arrivals in that year. And when in the year the war ended in 2009, we touched 447. So during those 9 years, we were averaging approximately 450 to 500,000 per year. Now, the statistics alone speak itself. We've seen this figure this year, end of 2013, we would in fact come very close to 1.2 million tourist arrivals. So you can see what a remarkable change it has been over the last 4 to 5 years.
Yes.
But in my opinion, the best is yet to come. And I feel the future in this industry for our country is phenomenal.
Right. Vasantha, I feel that the pattern of the tourist arrivals has changed, and we find tourists from countries other than the European countries arriving. From what sort of countries do we get majority of our tourists?
Sri Lanka in the past has been very heavily dependent on Western European tourist arrivals. Yeah. But there was a big change to this, significant change with the economies not doing too well. The European economies were not doing too well in, say, 2007, 2008, which resulted in our dependence slowing down or to some extent reducing drastically from these areas. And we've seen new markets emerging. And this is also largely to do with the growth in the new economies. We've seen this particularly in China. China is now considered the country that is going to revolutionize the tourism industry, yes, both inbound and outbound, and we see that very clearly. So China is going to be a big stakeholder in time to come. We've seen markets from Eastern Europe producing very well. Russian states, Russia itself and Ukraine has been doing very well and will do well this year as well, this winter season. We've seen the rest of the Eastern European countries, Poland, for example, poised to bring in big numbers. It added to that the Middle Eastern region, the entire GCC region is also going to make a significant contribution. And of course, we can't help forget India. Right. India is going to be a very dominant player in Sri Lanka's leisure industry in the future.
So most untapped markets are now being tapped.
Absolutely, yes. So that itself speaks of the opportunities we have in the industry.
Right. What's the one thing about our tourism industry is that we are highly diversified, and diversity of our tourism product is unparalleled. I think we have about 6 to 8 different products like beaches, heritage, wildlife, scenic beauty, mind and body wellness, festival sports, and so on. So this is a huge advantage for our country. But how do we get this message across to the prospective travelers to Sri Lanka?
Well, there are various means of doing it. The traditional historical method that we've done is to work alongside the foreign tour operators. And I must say, the foreign tour operators who have been involved in Sri Lanka over a period of time had faith in the destination. They believed that Sri Lanka was going to raise itself one day. They sometimes at their cost, they kept featuring Sri Lanka repeatedly. As you know, the brochure pages in catalogs cost a lot of money, but they still sustain the product per se. And what we used to do was to work very, very closely with them and tell them, look, this is the product offering that we have, and it's unparalleled, as you said. Some of these are very, very unique, very unique to Sri Lanka as a destination. So that was one aspect of it. But moving forward, it's now becoming a strongly technology-driven industry, and we need to change with times as well. We are looking at, whilst we work with the foreign tour operators, we need to look at how we position and market ourselves. And that is happening as well by way of state patronage and with us getting involved in the marketing activities. And also we see a fairly sizable element of our business now moving to the online travel agencies, the OTAs as well. So that's another element and another channel that we are using to position and market Sri Lanka.
Right. So the foreign tour operators have a big say in promoting Sri Lanka in their own countries.
Well, in their respective countries, yes, because the travelers from those countries will believe and have faith in tour operators who have a reputation in their marketplace.
Right.
So we still work very closely with them as well. But as I said, the channels are changing and there are new avenues, opportunities.
Right. Now, with a recorded history of more than 2,500 years, Sri Lanka has a rich heritage, and I think we have about 8 World Heritage sites within the country. What sort of steps should we take to encourage and induce the tourists to visit these sites? What are the improvements required?
Well, if you look at improvements, we are looking at world-class sites.
Right.
And if we are to position them world-class and market them world-class, we must also have decent facilities. That's probably an area where we would like to see an improvement. Say you go to any renowned site globally, you see museums connected to that, places where they can buy souvenirs,
right.
Restaurants, decent toilet facilities. These are basic things, and I think we need to see an improvement in that area and address that. But having said that, what has really helped and facilitated us better to market these locations is the fact that accessibility has improved. And I'm very, very happy to say that since 2009, we've seen a massive improvement in infrastructure. One of the biggest setbacks to us was the time taken traveling from point to point, and that to the extent that it became somewhat frustrating to the foreign traveler. Definitely. Because they are not used to it in their own countries. But with the road network improving very well, we've seen that getting shortened. We've seen highways opening. The fact that you can come from The airport to Colombo in 20 minutes is a significant improvement. The southern highway going to Galle and now beyond to Mathara very soon is going to add value as well. Also, I think we cannot forget the fact that it's been a slow start in Mattala, but the fact that we have another international airport complements the Katunayaka facility. Also, it opens a new area, new region. It opens the entire southern hemisphere, the northern hemisphere, the eastern hemisphere, as well as the entire Uva belt. These areas, except probably the south, haven't been explored to its true potential in the tourism industry. But now there's a lot of focus and attention going into these areas.
Right. I mean, a place like the airport, I think, can even be used for any domestic air travel also, because it's another area we have to think of for those who are in a hurry to get to a certain place and come back to Colombo. We're going to take a short break now, Vasantha, and we'll be right back soon after this message from our sponsor. Welcome back. You are watching Rupees and Cents, brought to you with the compliments of People's Leasing and Finance PLC, and I've been talking to Mr. Vasantha Leelananda, the Executive Vice President, Head Destination Management Sector of John Keells. Vasantha, we have been hearing a lot about MICE tourism since so late. There's meetings, incentives, conferences, exhibitions, events, etc. And this is an area where you can make a lot of money, and there are countries like Thailand and even Singapore earning a lot of money through MICE tourism. Are we ready to embark on an effective campaign to promote MICE tourism? Can we handle?
Well, if you really look at the large-scale MICE tourism, which is growing strongly in the region, we don't have the infrastructure to handle it. I'm looking at a facility which can cater to about 5,000 people in one go. Having said that, we made tremendous strides in this sector. Again, we've seen this moving rapidly since 2009. We are dependent a lot on few small facilities which we have. We have the BMICH, which it's good, but it doesn't really meet up with the scale that we require. We are fortunate to have another facility now in Hambantota, but it's not only the MICE facility. You need to complement that with accommodation. We need to have quality hotel rooms to accommodate these travelers. Then you have to have the restaurants, the entertainment that goes with the MICE sector. So this is an area I believe we have to strongly focus on, and there is going to be there's room for improvement in this area.
Right. The income that is generated through the tourism industry there's a big difference between that and other areas from where we get foreign exchange. The main thing here is that there's no raw material involved. And tell me what you feel about the foreign exchange earnings.
Absolutely. Every rupee, for instance, that a foreign tourist spends in Sri Lanka is foreign exchange into the country. In real essence, it is a invisible export. And the other beauty in this industry is the trickle-down effect. You cannot rest that it's only the accommodation and the transport or whatever that a client would pay. There are lots of other elements that go with it. And we see a lot of people benefiting out of this industry. So all in all, it's a win-win game. And it is an industry that we have to sustain ourselves going forward. Having said that, there's a lot of debate whether we should manage it properly. And I strongly believe it is an area we have to focus on.
When you talk about employment, again, here there is direct employment as well as indirect employment.
Yes, currently we are looking at both direct and indirect at a figure of about 138,000, depending on tourism. Looking at His Excellency's vision of 2.5 million tourist arrivals by 2016, we believe this figure will go up to approximately 600,000, both direct and indirect again. So again, as a business, as an activity that provides employment, tourism will stand very much in the forefront.
Yeah. Another two more areas that in relation to tourism industry that had been discussed much since of late is medical tourism and spiritual tourism. Now, there are many, thousands of people are going to countries like Vietnam, Bangkok, where there are a lot of Buddhists looking for inner happiness. Now, Sri Lanka also has a few meditation centers, but isn't it an area that we should try to explore?
Most certainly, because tourism historically again was an industry where somebody used to travel because there's sun, because there's sea, there's entertainment and whatnot. But I think it has matured beyond that. There are very specialized segments who are looking for activities of the nature of what you're talking about,
right.
And that segment is growing. Also, when you look at the global travel patterns, you see a change in the travelers. We've identified that Western Europe numbers probably would drop and the new economies are emerging, but also situations like the low-cost carriers coming in, the low-cost airlines coming in, the new economy is coming out very, very strongly, has created and given opportunities to a new generation of travelers. And what they would need vis-a-vis what has been provided in the past could be different as well. So we have to be adaptable, we have to be flexible. Our mindset has to be on a change mode going forward.
Right. Now, we are trying to get more tourists to come to Sri Lanka. What about accommodation for them? Isn't there a shortage of rooms?
Well, we managed. In certain areas, during certain times of the year, we see run on accommodation. We are having problems. For example, the next 4 months, Sri Lanka is going to be absolutely full because we are going into a very, very busy season. But having said that, we are very happy to see lots of new facilities coming in. And in that sense, particularly the brand names coming in. Hyatt is scheduled to open in 2015. Right. We have Sheraton, Shangri-La, Movenpick, Ozo, the Thai chain. All these properties are at some point in the next few months and years will open their facilities in Colombo. So that is something we as the industry must welcome. We must welcome competition because this competition will also bring in higher standards, higher benchmarks, and which we believe is what we need. And it augurs well. I think the accommodation factor we will manage because there's another very, very strong element which is moving forward. That is the small and medium enterprise sector.
Right.
You have the homestays, you have the guest house element, and all these little units have become businesses on their own. And this has helped people to sustain themselves and grow in their little businesses. And in this instance, I must compliment the authorities, particularly the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, for assisting and giving the impetus to these little industries.
Right. If you take the tourism industry in Sri Lanka today, I think you have about 3 or 4 different bodies controlling the activities. Is that correct?
Yes, the main regulatory authority is SLTDA, Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. Then we have the Tourism Promotional Bureau. We also have a separate unit handling the convention aspect, the Sri Lanka Convention Bureau, and Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hospitality Management, which is essentially the hotel school, training and developing young people into this sector.
Yeah. During bad times, during turbulent times, a lot of our trained personnel left the country and went to countries like Maldives and Dubai and so on. Losing such experienced people is a loss, all right. Can't we think of some ways and means of encouraging them to come back?
Well, I must say it is happening, and it is happening at a pace which is very pleasing. We see lots of professionals, particularly in the hotel industry, who ventured out, coming back purely because they see this business and the industry as an opportunity and as one where they can grow. So that is happening, but I must say that's also one of our serious challenges. Trained people in the hospitality industry, because there is no sense in having a very good hardware without software.
Right.
And when you talk of software, you're competing against the best in the world, I believe, when you take the region. What Thailand is offering, what Malaysia is offering, Indonesia. I mean, their hospitality sector is unbelievable. They look at all minute details. So we need to really focus more attention on that.
Right. One final question, very briefly. If you have to market Sri Lanka, in other countries, we need the funds. And raising funds is also not an easy task. We can't rely on the government. Is there any way that we could sort of think of setting up some sort of a fund in order to promote Sri Lanka as a tourist destination in other countries?
Well, I'm not too sure as to whether the private sector can get together and put up a fund on its own. But I must say this is happening in a very robust, vibrant manner with individual tour operators and their counterparts in Sri Lanka. And also in certain instances, the airlines that they use and depend on. So we've done a lot of joint marketing activities on a one-on-one basis individually. Having said that, we cannot also relax that Sri Lanka will sell on its own. We have to believe in marketing, because the rest of our competition, which has grown rapidly over the last few years, are also spending a lot of money. I'm talking about Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, even India, with Incredible India. So we have to keep pace. And in this, we see a very positive trend, because our tourism authorities have very recently taken a call to do some electronic media marketing with CNN, Al Jazeera, and certain other channels,
right.
Which is going to really position us much better.
Much better. Vasantha, thank you so much for joining me in this discussion. We learned a lot about the tourism industry, and we sincerely hope that the industry will do well and keep up the good work that you all are doing, and all the very best to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
With that, we conclude Rupees and Cents tonight, and we'll be back again next Tuesday at 10 p.m. right here on IT. And do join us then. Good night.